Remember, the state of Georgia has the burden. Colin Gray is cloaked in the presumption of innocence. So has the state proven its case? And if not, what do they have left to do? Let's bring in criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Bruno. David, good morning to you. Your thoughts on that question, please.
Well, look, this is right on the edge of criminal culpability. We're talking about prosecuting dad for the son's actions and whether or not that was criminal negligence. In Georgia, criminal negligence is two prongs. It first requires the reckless disregard of consequences. But more importantly for this conversation, the second part of that is with reasonable foresight that injury will probably result. That is the crux of this case and what prosecutors have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that the father had the circumstances that led him to believe that it would be probable that his son went in and shot and killed these 4 people and injured 7 others. So it's really on the fine line, and it's going to be interesting. The prosecutor's done a great job of putting evidence about what happened at the school, and now they're at a point where they're trying to prove that he had all of this information so that he should have known that that action was probable.
I appreciate it, Dave. So tell me, in terms of the charging, just backing up a second-degree murder we see here. The only other case we can think of like this was the one in Oakland County, Michigan, where the Crumbly parents, Jennifer and James Crumbly, were prosecuted. They were found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. As you know, Dave, we talked a lot about it. Big difference in second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter, and the facts are strikingly similar. Do you think this case has been overcharged?
Well, in Georgia, they're actually first charging the second-degree cruelty to children, all right? And that's where that criminal negligence element comes in that I just described. So they get to the second-degree murder on the basis of the cruelty to the children. So the elements on the murders caused the death, and then second did so in the commission of the child cruelty. So that's where you get to a more purposeful murder versus the involuntary murder that we saw in the Crumbly case.
Sure. Okay, so with that being said, if you're on the defense side of this, what do you do? Do you encourage Colin Gray to testify as a way to save himself here? How do you think this is the most defensible, Dave?
Well, look, on the cross, let's start with cross-examining these witnesses. And that statement, that body cam statement, comes across as problematic for the defense. But the way I would go about that is after the fact. That is not indicative of what was known before, and especially in light of the text message that was received by his daughter about a lockup in school. So he's provided additional information than what he disregarded prior to the shooting. So it's really critical about timelines and what was known, when it was known, to really distinguish so that the jury doesn't get all mixed up and all think it's all about what he knew before.
Right. You know, the thought of this case going before the sons is probably strategic. Dave, tell me, do you like this strategy move by the prosecutor's office, if you're the state of Georgia, to try dad before trying son?
You also got to remember the son was a juvenile. There's a waiver proceeding that had to happen. Procedurally speaking, juveniles generally are in juvenile court and rehabilitation is the purpose. However, on a case like this, they're waived up as adults. So now they had that waiver, and obviously the prosecutor did have a decision to make. This son's case is so much stronger. I mean, anybody, a junior prosecutor, could walk in and try that case. So I'd imagine they want their witnesses fresh. They want to get their best shot first, and they don't want to give dad's attorneys the firepower to see a record on the son's case before his.
Right. Dave, tell me, you know, at the end of all this, any predictions on how this case is going to go?
Again, this is very much on the edge of criminal culpability. Now, this is a theme we've been seeing pretty regularly. I mean, earlier this week, we talked about the dad that gave the 14-year-old the keys that was also convicted. So this is a case that could go either way, and really emotions are so strong in that courtroom. And it's going to be a very awesome responsibility for this jury to consider what was known, what was disregarded, and whether or not that result was probable. That is the biggest element that needs to be overcome by prosecutors, because probable result is a long stretch, especially when we're talking about a school shooting.
David Bruno, thank you so much for weighing in. Great to see you this morning. Friends at home, this trial.